Please, just give me something to eat. I haven't eaten anything in 2 days.
Get lost! There's nothing here for beggars like you. Get the hell out of here right now. And listen, if I ever see your face here again, I'll make you regret it.
Hey, know your place. She is not your slave. You don't get to just spit out whatever garbage comes to your mind. If even one more word comes out of your mouth against this woman, you will see the absolute worst of me.
On a crisp, freezing winter morning, the automatic sliding doors of a large American supermarket slowly glided open. Mason, a 35-year-old man, slowly pushed a shopping cart down the aisle. Right beside him walked his 10-year-old daughter, Harper. As Mason steered the cart toward the checkout lanes, his gaze stopped at a woman standing near the register. It was Elena, holding a single loaf of bread and a can of soup. Across the counter, a young cashier glared at her with extreme irritation. "Ma'am, I've told you 3 times." The cashier sighed loudly, rolling his eyes as he attempted to pull the items back across the scanner. "The card is declined. Insufficient funds. You're holding up the entire line. There are people waiting." "Please, son," Elena pleaded in a weak, trembling voice, desperately checking the empty pockets of her torn coat. "Just swipe it one more time. Maybe there's a glitch with the machine. I'm so hungry. I haven't eaten since yesterday morning." "The machine is perfectly fine, ma'am." The cashier cut her off, his voice rising with cruel disrespect. "If you don't have the money, why are you even in this store? This isn't a charity kitchen. Step aside and put the items back on the shelf." Elena's head dropped in pure shame and helplessness. A single tear escaped her wrinkled eyes and fell onto her freezing cheek. Her hands shaking violently, she began to push the loaf of bread back toward the cashier. Mason stopped his cart dead in its tracks. He took a deep breath, and with slow, heavy, authoritative steps, he walked right up to the register. He stared down the cashier with a cold, piercing intensity. "Bag it!" Mason commanded, without raising his voice, but speaking with a terrifying, quiet authority. "Excuse me, sir?" The cashier blinked in surprise, taking a step back. Mason pulled a heavy black metal credit card from his wallet and tossed it onto the counter, his eyes never leaving the boy. "I said, everything this woman has, and whatever else she needs. Bag it. Run it on my card. And if I ever hear you speak to an elder with that tone of voice again, you won't have a job by tomorrow morning." The cashier swallowed hard, completely intimidated, and quickly began bagging the items. Elena slowly raised her tear-filled eyes, looking at Mason in absolute disbelief. In the cold, unforgiving rush of this massive city, a stranger had just stepped in to save her. "I don't know who you are, son," she whispered, reaching out with frail, trembling hands to gently touch the sleeve of Mason's overcoat. Her voice broke with overwhelming gratitude. "But today, you fed a starving mother. May God keep all the pain away from your life. May every sorrow you carry be lifted. God bless you, my child." The moment Mason heard the words, "my child," his entire body froze. A sharp, agonizing ache tightened his chest. He stared into Elena's eyes for a long, quiet moment, unable to speak. He simply gave a small, respectful nod, took his card, gently took Harper's hand, and walked out through the sliding doors. Outside, a bitter winter wind blew snow across the pavement. Mason and Harper walked side by side toward their suburban neighborhood. The crunch of their boots against the snow was the only sound breaking the heavy silence. Suddenly, Harper stopped and gently tugged on her father's hand. "Dad?" she asked, her voice filled with pure innocence. "Why did you do that? You didn't even know that lady. Why did you buy all that stuff for her? Mason stopped walking. He slowly dropped to one knee on the snowy sidewalk, bringing himself down to Harper's eye level. He let out a long, heavy sigh, looking out into the cold, empty street. I don't know, Harper. To be honest, I really don't know. But when that cashier was insulting her, something inside of me just broke. I just did what felt right. And for some reason, doing that, it gave me a strange sense of peace inside all this noise in my head. He gently kissed her forehead, stood back up, and held her hand tighter. A while later, Mason unlocked the heavy oak front door of their home. It was a massive, incredibly luxurious house, but inside, it was completely dead. There was no sound, no warmth. It felt less like a home and more like a beautifully decorated tomb. As Mason tossed his wet overcoat over the sofa, Harper suddenly sank to the hardwood floor. She pulled her knees to her chest, her small shoulders shaking violently as she started to sob. Harper, sweetheart, what's wrong? Mason rushed over, dropping to the floor beside her in alarm. Why are you crying? Dad, I miss Mom so much, she cried, looking up at him with eyes full of absolute agony. The color instantly drained from Mason's face. He fought with everything he had to hold back his own tears as he wiped her cheeks. It's been 4 years, Dad. Harper's voice cracked with a pain no child should feel. 4 years since Stella left us. Do you remember what this house felt like when Mom was here? It used to laugh, Dad. Now, when I come home from school, this house just swallows me whole. These walls, they scare me. It feels like I'm all alone in this giant empty box. Mason's heart shattered. Unable to bear the weight of his daughter's crushing grief, he pulled Harper tightly into his chest. I know, my sweet girl. I know. He trembled, the tears finally spilling down his face. This house isn't a home anymore. Ever since your mom passed, it feels like all the life just walked out the front door with her. I try so hard to keep you happy, Harper, but I feel like I'm failing you. I feel her missing in every single corner. It feels like I'm just breathing in here. I'm not living. In that massive, freezing home, the only sound was the heartbreaking sobbing of a broken father and his lonely daughter. The next morning, the city was engulfed in a brutal torrential downpour. The sky was a heavy gray, and the freezing wind whipped rain across the empty sidewalks. Mason walked slowly under a large black umbrella, having just watched Harper board her school bus. The exhaustion from last night's breakdown was etched into his face. As he approached the street corner near the supermarket, his heavy footsteps came to a sudden halt. Huddled on the freezing, wet concrete beneath a broken, narrow awning was Elena. The shelter was so small that the freezing rain poured directly onto her threadbare coat. She shivered violently, her head tucked down against the biting wind. Without a second thought, Mason crossed the flooded street. He walked directly toward her and silently extended his arm, positioning his large umbrella over Elena to block the punishing rain. Elena slowly lifted her pale face, her lips faintly blue from the cold. It took her a few seconds to process that the towering man holding the umbrella was the stranger from the supermarket. Elena, what are you doing out here? Mason asked, his voice low and steady. Why are you sitting on the freezing pavement in a storm like this? You're completely soaked. Why haven't you gone home? The tears finally broke, mixing with the raindrops on her wrinkled face. Home, she whispered weakly against the roar of the rain. Life took everything from me a long time ago, son. This old broken woman doesn't have a home. These streets are my entire world now. Yesterday, you bought me food. I will never forget that kindness. But today, just let me rot in this rain. Please, just go. Walk away. You're getting soaked because of me." Every single word felt like a knife twisting in Mason's chest. As he looked at her, Harper's heartbreaking words echoed in his mind. "These walls scare me, Dad." Mason tightened his grip on the umbrella and slowly dropped to one knee on the flooded concrete. He reached out and gently took both of Elena's freezing, trembling hands into his own warm grip. "Elena, you're sitting here telling me you don't have a home," Mason said, his voice heavy with emotion. "And me? I have a massive, beautiful house sitting at the end of the street, but there is absolutely zero warmth inside of it. It feels like an empty tomb, and it is slowly eating me and my little girl alive. If you don't have a home of your own, then starting today, mine is yours. My daughter desperately needs a grandmother's love, and you need a roof over your head. You're coming with me." Elena's eyes widened in sheer shock. You aren't just a man, son. You're an angel," she sobbed, pressing his hand to her forehead. I can be your maid. I can scrub your floors. Just please, don't leave me out here to die." "You aren't coming to my house to be a maid, Elena." Mason cut her off gently. "You're coming to be a part of our family. Let's get you out of the cold." He helped her up, pulling her into the center of the umbrella, taking the brunt of the storm on his own shoulders. They walked in silence to his home. Inside, the roar of the rain was replaced by the deep, heavy silence of the massive house. Mason draped a warm towel over Elena's trembling shoulders. "Please, have a seat anywhere you like," Mason comforted her. "I'm going to make you a hot cup of coffee and find you one of my late wife's heavy sweaters. You're safe here." As Mason disappeared into the kitchen, Elena, too intimidated to sit on the pristine furniture, walked slowly across the living room. Her eyes were drawn to a massive stone fireplace. Above the mantel sat framed photographs. Right in the middle was a small, vintage, black and white picture in a silver frame, a 7-year-old boy sitting on his mother's lap, both of them laughing in pure, unconditional love. The floor vanished from beneath Elena's feet. She gasped, covering her mouth as her entire body began to shake. Tears flooded her eyes. She stumbled forward, tracing the cold glass of the frame. "Oh my God! How is this possible?" she whispered violently. Mason walked back into the room, holding a steaming mug and a sweater, stopping when he saw Elena weeping uncontrollably. "Elena, what's wrong?" he asked. She turned around, her face a picture of absolute devastation, pointing a shaking finger at the mantel. "Mason, son? Whose picture is this? Where did you get this photograph?" Mason's stoic facade melted away. He set the coffee down and walked over, staring at the photograph. "That picture. I took that with my mother, Elena," he whispered, his voice hollow. "I was only 7 years old. It is the very last piece of her I have left. I don't even know if she is still alive today." What happened to her?" Elena choked out, leaning heavily against the stone fireplace. "Why did she leave you?" "My father was incredibly wealthy, but he never had a minute for his wife." Mason's voice grew tighter, staring blankly out the window. "One night, they had a terrifying argument. She packed a small bag and walked out crying. I thought she just needed a few days to cool off, but that was the last day I ever saw my mother's face. After that, she vanished." Mason's voice cracked. "My stepmother despised me. She would lock me in my bedroom, starving me. I used to lay on the floor, begging the door for my mother to come back. I was so broken that when I was 16, I ran away. I slept on the streets. I built my own company, my own fortune. For one reason, so I could have the power to find her." He broke down entirely, dropping to his knees on the hardwood floor, sobbing like the lost 7-year-old boy he still was inside. I spent my entire life looking for her. I funded shelters. I poured millions down the drain. I failed her. I don't know if she's freezing on some street corner right now. The agony of a mother witnessing her child's broken heart erupted inside Elena. With trembling steps, she dropped to her knees directly in front of the weeping billionaire. She reached out, placing her palms against Mason's tear-soaked cheeks, gently lifting his face. "Mason, my sweet, sweet boy. Look at me," Elena cried, her voice carrying the weight of a lifetime of longing. Mason's breath caught in his throat. His heart skipped a heavy beat. "The mother you spent your entire life looking for, Mason. She didn't vanish," Elena sobbed devastatingly, her thumbs wiping his tears. "She is kneeling right in front of you. It's me, my beautiful boy. I am your mother." A deafening silence fell over the room. Mason stared into Elena's exhausted eyes, looking past her to the photograph on the mantel. The exact same eyes, the exact same warmth. Suddenly, a violent wave of resurrected childhood anger crashed into him. He jerked backward. "No, you're lying," Mason shouted desperately. "If you're my mother, why did you leave me in that hell? Why didn't you take me with you?" Elena clutched her chest, letting out a gut-wrenching cry, and grabbed both of Mason's hands in an iron grip. "I never abandoned you! Your father forced me out. He was having an affair. When I came back 2 days later, he had locked the gates. His guards physically dragged me away. He blocked my accounts, threatened to lock me in an asylum. I was thrown onto the streets like garbage." Mason stared in pure horror, the color draining from his face. "I slept on park benches in the freezing snow, Mason, just so I could stand 3 blocks away and watch you walk into your school." She wept bitterly onto the floor. "I watched you grow up from the shadows. Your father stole you from me. We spent our entire lives wandering the same streets, dying inside, looking for each other." The horrifying truth finally crashed down on Mason. The monster wasn't the mother who left. It was the father who stayed. All of Mason's anger evaporated, replaced by a profound, overwhelming love. Without a word, he lunged forward, wrapping his strong arms around his frail mother. Elena let out a loud, relieved cry, burying her face in his shoulder. "Mom, I'm so sorry you were out there in the cold." Mason sobbed into her shoulder, holding her as if the world might steal her away again. "You're never going back to those streets. I promise you, Mom. I have you now." A soft footstep echoed from the hallway. Standing there was 10-year-old Harper, looking at her father holding the homeless woman in a desperate embrace. She walked in slowly, her innocent eyes wide with wonder, and gently touched Elena's wrinkled cheek. "Dad?" Harper whispered. Is this my grandma?" For the first time in 4 years, a genuine, radiant smile broke through Mason's tears. He reached out, pulling Harper down into the embrace. "Yes, sweetheart," he said, filled with a peace he hadn't felt in decades. "This is your grandma." Elena wrapped her arms around her son and her granddaughter, holding them both against her heart. Outside, the dark storm clouds finally broke, and a single, warm ray of golden sunlight pierced through the window, illuminating the 3 of them, finally home.